And it goes a little something like.
We're smoking reef. I definitely just realized it's muted. So yeah, that's cool. Anyway, I've been talking for a little while. Let me unmute my mic. That doesn't happen again. There we go. Oh, well, sorry if you've been watching me speak and nothing's been coming out, because I definitely was muted for a second there. But yeah, like I was saying before I unmuted myself, it's good to be online. It's good to be streaming again. I think the last time that I played was Sunday or something like that, and I was like offline. So this is good to get back on and like remember where I left off. I think I'm just doing like some pretty. Oh, well, it looks like I'm done. I was just doing some like small quests, some easy quests. Looks like I have a bunch of stuff to turn in over there. But today I wanted to like sort of go over like, you know, how I was feeling about the game and like just the state of MMOs as a whole and stuff like that. Because I think that there's a lot going on in like the MMO world right now. Mainly with like just the state of like World of Warcraft and oh, what is that? Oh, okay, it's Seeping Stone. No, that's new. The state of World of Warcraft and like Final Fantasy is picking up a lot of popularity lately, and like just overall like a lot of stuff going on in terms of the genre, I guess. No other way to really put it. That interests me obviously because like I am a long time MMO player. I love RPGs. I love messing around with like new ones, and ever since I was a kid I like played different games and stuff like that, like just, you know, because it interested me. I'm just fixing something really quick while I do this. Just because it interested me, those games were always like something that, you know, really appealed to me from a young age, because when I was a kid, I used to be like really into well, first and foremost, I was like really into like just games in general. But I think as I got older, I think as I got older, I started gravitating more towards MMOs because, well, it kind of started with like my first MMO, I guess, if that makes sense. I was playing EverQuest basically at a friend's house, and that's what really got me like super hooked on MMOs. It was the first time I'd ever played an MMORPG, and like I had no idea what MMOs were like, I guess. First and foremost, like EverQuest was. Oh, so we got some oil. That's interesting. I wonder what you use that for. EverQuest was like really state of the art for its time. Like no other game was really doing what EverQuest did. And the only like chatting experience I had online at the time was like AOL Instant Messenger. So like there was never a game that I played where you could talk to other people. Like that was not something that was implemented in any game that I played. And the only RPGs I had played were single player RPGs. Mainly like Zelda was like a big one. Like I played a ton of Majora's Mask, and that's kind of where I sort of got like into the genre, I guess. But like once I played EverQuest, it just like blew my fucking mind. So for those that don't know about EverQuest, EverQuest used to be commonly referred to as EverCrack because the game was like literally so addicting back then. Like people were not. I think the game was like really ahead of its time. People were not prepared for the level of addiction that this game caused. It was super addictive. It was like really grindy. For the time, it had like some pretty damn good graphics, which if you look at it now, you just laugh and be like, what the fuck are you talking about? This game has terrible graphics. But back then, it was really doing something. This was back when like the Elder Scrolls of Morrowind was really popular, and like that was like the I guess um, the bar, I suppose. Like the Elder Scrolls and Halo was out. Not really an RPG, but like, you know, to give you an idea of what the graphics looked like around that time. Halo was out, the first Halo. And yeah, I mean, Nintendo was still doing its thing, but like games were not really looking so good graphically. So when EverQuest came out, it like blew people's mind, and I got like super hooked on it, guys. I got like so addicted to the game because it was just an experience that I had never had with games, and I don't think I was quite prepared for it. So we like, my friend was telling me about it, and he was like asking me if I wanted to come with him to stay at his brother-in-law and sister's house for like a week. And this was in like Spartanburg, South Carolina. So initially I was like, no, who the fuck wants to go to Spartanburg, South Carolina? Like, that's definitely not on my list of places that I want to spend a weekend. But he was like, oh no, it's cool. Like my brother-in-law is a I think he was a programmer, and he was like super into computers, and he was like, man, he's got like all these games, like we could like just hang out. He says it's totally cool. And we can play all these like games that he has and stuff. And I was like, okay. Like, I mean, that's like clearly right up my alley, so like let's do it. And he was like, oh, we can even play like EverQuest. I was like, what is that? And he was like, it's this game that's like, I'm paraphrasing, but he was like, it's this game, it's online, like you can talk to other people and you like group up and level up and all this stuff. And I was just like, huh, that seems pretty cool. And his brother-in-law and sister had like side-by-side like computer setups too, which was also like, I feel like ahead of its time. Because I was like, you know, used to just playing on my little N64, so this was definitely a new experience. And when we got on, I made an Ixar Necromancer, and Ixars are like these like lizard people. And like immediately when I got on, I don't know at what point like it really clicked with me that I was like gonna be addicted to this game, but there was some point when I think I like grouped up with some people or something, and I was just like, and they were talking, and I was like, when I realized you can talk to people, my friend would be like showing me where to go. Like he'd be like, all right, come over here for this thing, and I'd be like following him, and I would like get distracted because I would see another player, and I'd be like, oh, I have to talk to them, and I'd like, yo, I was a kid, like I was like probably, and I was probably like 13 years old or some shit. I don't even know. But I was like talking to all these random ass people in the game. And I was just fascinated because, like I said, my frame of reference here was like AOL Instant Messenger. That's the only time I'd ever like talked to someone else online. So being able to talk to someone in a video game was like blowing my fucking mind. And I was just like, I was just baffled by it. It was incredible. So I think that really sparked the love for the genre for me. That really made me like, I don't know, that feeling of having just this massive world that I was like immersed into. And you know, back then it was like just so above its time that you couldn't replicate that experience with like any other game, it felt like. So from that point on, I like needed to play this game. It was incredible. I mean, I actually ended up being so dead set on getting a PC at that point that I told my parents, I was like, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna get a computer. This is like 13 or 14-year-old me, right? I was like, I'm gonna get a computer. I'm gonna save my money and buy it. And they were like, how the fuck are you gonna, you know, they didn't say it like this, but they were probably thinking like, how the fuck is he gonna save money? He's like 14 years old, like he doesn't make any money. And I like took our lawnmower and like went like door to door people's houses and like offered to, like knocking on their door, this kid, and offered to like mow their lawn. And like, I didn't have business slogan or anything. You know what I mean? I wasn't like savvy with like prices or anything, so I was just willing to like mow people's lawn for like whatever they give me. And sometimes like their lawns didn't even need mowing. But they would feel like bad enough for me, I guess, that they were just like, yeah, sure, like go knock yourself out. And I'd come back and they'd give me like $10, $20, you know, whatever. And I did this for like some period of time and gathered like what I considered at the time like a decent amount of money. Certainly not enough for a computer, but I think it was enough to show my parents that I was like passionate enough about this that they were like, okay, clearly our kid really wants a computer, so like that'll be his like Christmas present or whatever the case is. So they got me this like Hewlett Packard like typical ass computer from. They probably like went up to like a Best Buy employee or something and was like, hey, like our son wants a computer, like could you sell us one that could run games? And they were like, oh yeah, sure, buy this, you know, $1,500 Hewlett Packard computer that's like not even that great, but it worked. It did have a video card, and it did have like probably like 512 megabytes of RAM, so like it could run EverQuest. And yeah, so that's how I like started playing it, and then that just opened up the door to like so many other games. Like from there, I mean, some of them good, some of them bad. Like I will say that who is this guy? Oh, it's just a miner, I guess. I will say that I played Diablo 2, and that obviously was like an amazing game. Especially in its prime. Like prime Diablo 2, super good. Super good. What's happening here? Apparently I'm still opening this box. We'll get to the state of this game in a little bit. I'm just reminiscing on like old memories of video games. But yeah, like prime Diablo 2, like masterpiece, you know what I mean? That game was so fucking good. I remember staying up like so fucking late and not having like any concept of like what a build is, like how to metagame, like in terms of, you know, building a character and stuff like that. Like there are builds, obviously, right? Min-maxing and stuff like that that you can do that, you know, makes your character viable. And I didn't, you know, like I didn't know what I was doing. I like rolled a barbarian or something like that. Or no, I was a necromancer. That's right. That was my first class. I was a necromancer in Diablo 2. And man, bitch, let me repair my weapon. And then my cousin played a barbarian, and if you know anything about Diablo 2, like, there was a pretty big PvP scene in that game. And my cousin and I would, like, fight each other in PvP, and he would just, like, absolutely fucking demolish me. And from then on, I was like, dude, fuck this necromancer, I'm playing a barbarian. Because they were like so much easier to face roll with, I guess. But anyway, so I played that. But honestly, like, I would literally play any MMO that I saw. If it was like free MMO, like, just play now, you know, like download this now, and I would just be like, yep, I'll download it. Like all of these like random like foreign country MMORPGs, like I would download them and try them. I was probably like the only kid in America that was playing these games, but I mean, they were fun. They were like, I don't know, because it didn't matter if the game was bad to me. I could still like get into it. And like I said, there were some good ones. Like I played City of Heroes, which was a really cool concept. I mean, basically like it's what the name implies if you weren't familiar with the game. Like it was super popular at one point in time. But like you basically just played a superhero, and like you kind of like there were different types of builds and stuff like that, and you could you know, be like a ranged superhero or a melee superhero or like a tank. I mean, they still use the same fundamentals as like any MMO, but those were like the big things. And played that one a lot for sure. But then I discovered World of Warcraft, which was like my next big chapter, I feel like, in my MMO experiences. And like obviously like the name kind of speaks for itself. Like everyone knows what World of Warcraft is now, you know? Like unless you've been living under a rock, you know what World of Warcraft is. And I resisted playing WoW for like the longest time. Believe it or not, I actually didn't play through. I want to say like I didn't play through like whichever one predates like the original vanilla or classic. I'm pretty sure vanilla was like the I mean just like the BC of like World of Warcraft. But I remember playing classic, I believe, once I ended up succumbing to the fact that it was like the most popular MMO. And then like for the second time in my life, I feel like the game really like blew my mind. It was just so good in so many different ways, and I remember just thinking like man, this game is like so state of the art, so ahead of its time, so good that I just immediately like quit playing EverQuest. I was like, this game is like so far ahead of what EverQuest is right now that like I have got to be playing this game. This is like my primary focus now. And so I started playing WoW, and we started on a server with my brother-in-law at the time, and like it was pretty fun. It was a pretty low population server. It was a PvE server. Like, I didn't learn until after the fact that you should probably look up a server before you join it, but you know, it sort of is what it is, right? Like, I was a kid and it didn't even really matter because my character sucked, but one of the things is like I started actually learning about like builds and stuff like that when the Burning Crusade came out. Great expansion, by the way. And then like moving on to Wrath of the Lich King, I really hit like a stride. Like I feel like I really, you know, I started like actually raiding for the first time in a game, and I started like actually like looking up rotations and topping damage meters and all that jazz, and like it all kind of started like clicking for me. And I played through Cataclysm, and I PvP'd mostly in Mists of Pandaria, and then I like returned for Warlords of Draenor. All those times that I played World of Warcraft, like I was like pretty competitive with the game. I mean, I played a lot, and let's see what we got here. Ooh, is that a necklace? It is not. These things throw me off so bad. So I was pretty competitive, and I raided a lot, and I was in a lot of high-end raiding guilds. And what I would do is before I would start a character, I would look at the server stats, and I would see what guilds were on that server, where they were at, you know, progression-wise and stuff, and I would be like, okay, like, I'm going to aim to join that guild, and I would, like, work my way up in the server, build a reputation, and this was, like, high school me, you know, into college, into, like, adult me, build a reputation, and I would make it into those guilds, and I would earn a spot in their like core raiding groups. And I actually at one point in time was like one of the top 50 or so warriors in North America in terms of damage. Like in these things, like they gauge your rank or whatever the case is on the damage that you do in like boss fights, which is not an uncommon thing. And I was just doing so much damage that I was like hitting that like top 50 margin. And I don't know what it was, but I think eventually I just got burned out on it, you know. It stopped being fun for me for some reason. Maybe it was just the group of players I was raiding with. Maybe it was because I just had other stuff going on in my young life. But I stopped caring, and I eventually sold my account. And that's when I kind of last like moved on from WoW. Warlords of Draenor really was the last time, and that was like obviously more recent, but it was definitely like I knew for a fact. I was like, this is the last time I'm playing this game because it had started to just become like the same recipe over and over and over again, and I just couldn't take it anymore. It was not fun to me. I don't know if it was. I couldn't never tell if it was like me or the game, right? Like I was like, am I just jaded and this game isn't fun because I'm not enjoying it, or it has the quality of the game gotten worse, you know?
We once know, but this
Um,
the lost in Nihard's anchorage may not be
Alright,
as
so we just turned in that
dangerous as
quest,
the
cool.
corruption.
And I came to the conclusion that I felt as though just the quality of the game was like diminishing, and whether or not that's true is subjective, right? But you know, I did come back. I got sold, unfortunately, on the whole like WoW Classic thing, so they got me on that one. Unfortunately, a friend of mine roped me into playing again, but like I quickly realized what I was doing there and quit. But
Oh, no,
I think I just
doesn't mix at all. Some kind of
developed
residue on it.
this like
What a bummer.
sort of I don't want to say like hatred, because I feel like that's kind of a strong word. I'm gonna mess with something really quick while I talk about this. I feel like that's kind of a strong word, but like I developed this like strong disdain for Activision and what they had kind of done with the game, because I felt like the problem with World of Warcraft and Activision Blizzard and stuff like that is that they how do I put this? They became this mega giant in the MMO genre, right? Like they became this like unbeatable, like this is the best game period, and we just have more money, and it's basically a monopoly on the entire thing, right? And because of that, and this isn't necessarily their fault, but in order to compete, all of these new games decided we're just going to try to be like World of Warcraft because that's clearly what people like.
With this, I understand.
Gunter,
Indeed.
And it sort of ruined games for a while, I feel like, because, you know, we've all heard the term WoW clone, and for like the longest time, that's like fucking all that would come out was just WoW clone after WoW clone, and it was like so. If you played MMOs for a while, you'll understand that it was so painstakingly obvious that these games were clones because they didn't even try to hide it anymore. But what was weird was it kept not working and people kept trying it. And I don't know if it was just because, you know, it all happened around the same time and their developments took longer and then they, you know, had committed to it or what, but it was just bad for a long time. Like, I did not enjoy going through that period of time where everybody was just trying to be World of Warcraft, because no game could replace World of Warcraft at being World of Warcraft, at that, if that makes any sense. And in my, you know, the lover of the genre in me was like, well, why don't people simply make their own game? Should level up here. Sweet. Some territory standings. It's like, why don't people just make their own game, you know? Like, why don't they just make it unique? Why do they have to copy World of Warcraft, you know? Like, to me, that just seems kind of silly. I didn't understand. And I think that, you know, I've theorized about it in a number of ways. I've thought, like, maybe they just were trying to capitalize on the current state of the genre. let's see. We have 2,000 Covenant token. Okay. You have a cap, actually. I'm going to derail this conversation for a second. You actually have a cap on this. And I forget what it is. 3,000. Okay, so we're good for a while. We're good for a while. I don't have to buy anything. I want to save my points for level 20 if I can.
Join with me in sacred service to this
These are like the non-PvP ones. Let's just do those. And they're all in this general area. Anyway, so like that that whole time period in MMO history was like kind of bleak because World of Warcraft was no longer good, except so many people still played it because they were willing to just accept that it was mediocre and just continue to play it. And like all the new games that were coming out were just flopping hard because they were either trying to be WoW or they were trying so hard to be different that they were just not good. And I think that era has somewhat passed a little bit. Like, Final Fantasy, when it first came out, was like kind of a breath of fresh air. I played it when it first came out. It was really cool. Now, I have not played Final Fantasy for like sustained periods of time, but I really was excited about the fact that it was coming from a developer that had so much experience, that had the funding necessary to make a game that could compete with World of Warcraft, and also that it was unique to itself. Like they had, you know, it's Final Fantasy. It's been around for quite a while. Like they didn't have to copy World of Warcraft. They literally already had the framework to make this game work. They just had to implement it into a well-functioning game, which is exactly what they did. And initially, I mean, for years, like I think The Realm Reborn was never as popular as World of Warcraft was, but now it seems as though things are sort of shifting a little bit in that regard. Let's see, this hammer is strictly worse than the one we already have. I like to keep one weapon just in case of each type. But yeah, it really feels like things are sort of shifting a little bit in the other direction. Like it feels like now World of Warcraft is becoming less popular by the day, and Final Fantasy, on the other hand, is getting a lot of new subscribers, or a lot of new, what do you call it? Just clients, I guess, customers, I don't know, players, for lack of better words. And now, like, we're witnessing, in my opinion, an era of new types of MMOs, which is like the, like, action MMORPG era, or however you want to, like, phrase that. Interactive dodging, you know, like, or just interaction in general. I'm gonna harvest these because I don't know what this is for. I think it's for like mana potions, and I don't use those, but I'm sure it's good to just, you want to gather in this game. Like gathering and crafting are very important. But basically, like what I was saying is now it's all about dodging attacks and, you know, having more control over where your character is, and like the mobility and all of that stuff, this other, you know, stuff that, you know, people have prioritized now over like the old clunky style of MMOs. And yeah, so those games like EverQuest where you just stand in front of a monster and just go through a rotation and hit them, kind of just out the window now. Like those games will never be popular again, I don't think. And enter New World, you know, into this genre of, you know, in a time where people like to see their MMORPGs, like they want good graphics, which is what, you know, this game definitely has good graphics. It's not the best, you know. I would even still argue that, you know, Final Fantasy probably has better graphics than this game. You know, just by a small margin. I don't necessarily. I think New World tried to probably do a little bit more detail. Like I think Final Fantasy is a little like cartoonish, not in a bad way, but that allows them to sort of use a little bit more of an unrealistic approach to like water and like, I don't know, like they get to do a little bit more like beautification to stuff, whereas New World is trying to like really make this building look like a building would, and really look like this, like these bushes really look like a bush, you know, type of thing. Whereas Final Fantasy can kind of just do what they want, because they're like, I mean, it's Final Fantasy, you know what I mean? Like this doesn't have to exist in real life, and New World took the like, I guess, realistic approach. So it's a little bit more difficult, I guess, to make things look real, but it's a beautiful game. And I like how, you know, at first I thought the harvesting was a little bit cumbersome, but I realized pretty quickly that you will realize in a short amount of time what is important in terms of harvesting. So it's like, okay, you pass by a bunch of rocks, right? If you're brand new, you might think like, should I gather those? Do I gather every group of fucking rocks that I see? Because if that's the case, this is going to be like a long night, you know what I mean? And it's like, I think you learn like pretty early on, like, oh, like these are for this, like rocks are for, you know, like things you make out of rocks, obviously. And you learn to prioritize things, I guess is what I'm getting at. You know? It's like, you don't prioritize things that aren't important, I guess. Like, oh, I gotta gather every single rock that I see. Like, no, I know what herbs I'm looking for, and I know what animals I need to skin, basically. It's like the key takeaway from the gathering in this game. I personally am not like big on crafting or big on gathering. I'm usually not the best person when it comes to that stuff. I do it obviously because it's just like random box just sitting out here. I do it because it's obviously important in this game, but I don't think that like it's like my favorite part about it. But I understand its necessity. The game seems like it's focused into 3 departments, which is a little bit cookie cutter. But those departments are basically, simply put, PvE, PvP, and crafting. And basically, like, with those, I feel like you have... There are some things I like about it, and there are some things I don't like, basically. I think that they have done enough in each of these departments that really... I think they can get by with what they have, right? Like, I think that if your average person was to PvP in this game, participate in... Now, I haven't done this, so I'm speaking with a little bit of an experience, but just from what I've seen, the average person can probably PvP in this game and think like, okay, like there's enough here for me to continue playing this and be satisfied over a long period of time. And then the same thing can be said about the crafting system. The same thing can be said about just random fucking turkeys sitting in this bush. The same thing can be said about the PvE system, like the quests and stuff like that. They're not shattering any records or like blazing any trails or anything like that. They're just, you know, they're just using the same mold as other RPGs have used. It's just pretty streamlined and, you know, pretty well polished, and that's okay, right? As long as they've made a good game, in my mind, like that is enough to get by. But in a way, at the moment, it feels a little one-dimensional, and I'm hoping that once I get to the end game and stuff like that in this game, that feeling starts to fade away a little bit, and there starts to be a little bit more to the game. Let's start with like questing, because like that's what I'm like looking at right now. The questing is a little one-dimensional in regards to like what you're doing, because I mean, if you see, it's all hunting and gathering quests, like that's it. I hate escort quests, I really do, but like I'm all for like some quest diversity, you know what I mean? Or like, I guess what I would have liked to have seen were like more group quests, more focus on like dungeons, and maybe I'm just not that far. I have seen dungeons. Sorry, I've seen dungeons. I know I'm too low to do them, but I know they exist. But like, yeah, I mean, I just would have loved to have seen like a more focus on like groups and stuff like that, group quests, and you know, I'm sure they could have thought of like a little bit more variety. It's like, kill this monster, take these things, go talk to this person, go do this crafting mission, you know. Again, these are not things that are necessarily bad, but they're not setting any records or nothing like that. I mean, it's like literally kind of like the same thing we've seen with every other game. And the PvP, I get a feel is kind of the same. I do love the controls in the game. I love that it does feel like a real action RPG. I love the 2-weapon fighting system. I like that you can switch between like an axe and a bow, you know, and really utilize those things and build your character around them. And I'm just using those as an example or whatever, but you get the idea. I think that's something that is very unique to this game. No other game really comes to mind when I think about that stuff. Ooh, very nice. We found silver vein. The noises are very satisfying. Did a good job with that. Only one silver ore, huh? But yeah, like, other than that, the combat seems like pretty similar to like other RPGs that I've played. Again, it just seems like they're not really breaking any records or anything like that. And I wonder if this game will remain a little one-dimensional, or if this is just like vanilla New World, you know. Like, this is vanilla New World, and like they have a foundation, and now they can add multiple layers to each one of these things in order to make it like a little bit more interesting, a little bit more enticing, to keep the average player interested. Because if that's the case, then great. Like, it's gonna be this game's gonna live a long life if that's the case, and I hope it does, because it does seem like they put a lot of effort into it. But if they don't add those layers, I fear that this game is gonna go the way of pretty much every MMO in the past like several decades, where they just kind of fall off after a while. Like, there's all this interim hype, and then after a while they just sort of like are not relevant anymore. And that's a real thing. And I think that is just sort of, I guess, my last point about this whole overarching, you know, like thing that I'm going off on, is that like the current state of MMOs, I feel like, has been dwindling for a while. With the exception of the few, I haven't actually looked at the store. Oh, I have 50,000 of these little coin things? What? Didn't know that. Okay, so there is dyes and... Oh, so it's just this skin? And a weapon skin? So pretty simple stuff. What is this? think these might change ever so often. I don't really like that one too much. Not a huge fan of cosmetics anyway. Anyway, the current state of MMOs, in my opinion, is sort of dwindling. And I think it has been for a while. We're actually going to use the two-handed axe for a little bit, because I haven't been using it. Seems kind of weird that I have two melee weapons. I might change that at some point, but yeah. I feel like it's been kind of tapering off lately, and I think that it's just a old model, and I think that people are no longer interested in these types of games. At least, like, a lot of people aren't, because, like, games now, I think, are all about, like, instant gratification. We, not to get all, like, philosophical or anything like that, but we live in, like, a pretty fast-paced society, and I think that younger people in general, and, like, maybe just, like, people as a whole, just want things instantly. Like, they don't want to grind super long to get, like, this, like, super awesome weapon or anything like that. Like, they want that weapon now. You know what I mean? And now I feel like games are adopting this model. You see a lot of games now adopting this model of, like, where it's, like, premium, where it's like, okay, you... Maybe that's not the right word, because that doesn't apply to everything, but, like, okay, so you can play Apex Legends for free, right? But if you want to unlock, like, Caustic, for example, you have to pay for them, right? I feel like that is, like, the new thing. You sound like whipped cream. Yeah. I bet he does. I knew as soon as I saw that whipped cream, he was probably going to like it. Little whipped cream boy. But yeah, that's it. I mean, I feel like just this model of game is sort of going by the wayside, and younger people are more interested. And that's not a slam on, like, young people either. It's not like, oh, you young whippersnappers don't know. It's not that. Like, time changes things. Change is not bad. Like, just because I like MMOs doesn't mean that MMOs should be, like, the end-all, be-all, or should be around forever. Obviously, if people don't like these games, and they've fallen out of favor, then there's a reason for that. It's supply and demand, right, in the gaming world. But, yeah, I mean, it's sad in a way because I do love this genre, but, like, at the same time, like, these games are a bit antiquated, and eventually they have to evolve into something. And I feel like action RPGs is sort of like getting close to that, but they're not quite there yet. You have to wait a second when you do this. It doesn't let you, like... It just cannot respec while abilities are on cooldown. Okay, I have an ability on cooldown. That's true. That's true. That makes sense. Okay. Yeah. So I mean, if it has to change, then it has to change. You know, it's like one of those things where certain games just aren't popular anymore, and it might come back. You know, after a while when it becomes like a retro thing. But I feel like for now, it's certainly not dead. People are still making MMOs. Oh my fucking god, what the hell? There's a damn alligator. This game... Oh, Jesus. This game definitely has... I will say, if you are thinking about purchasing this game or thinking about playing this game, understand what you're getting yourself into. This game is currently in beta. And I mean that. Like, there are optimization issues with this game. Like, it is not perfect as it stands right now. They have some things to work on. I think a lot of people were upset by that. I'm kind of somewhere in between because while I understand this game is in beta, it has been in development for a long time, so that concerns me that there's still issues with it. but it's okay. I mean, how else are they supposed to fix the game if they don't know about like the issues or whatever the case is? So I don't know. No, this is the perfect game. Yeah, it definitely isn't. I think that if someone were to play this game with the expectation that it's complete, they would be severely disappointed unless their standards were pretty low. And I'm just talking on behalf of like mainly the optimization of the game. Like it's clearly got some bugs and stuff. But it's fun. You know, I'm not trying to like paint this game into like a bad light or anything like that. I talked about like a lot of the pros and cons earlier, like of how I felt about, you know, the current state of the game and like whether or not I felt like it had a lot of potential and stuff, and which I stand by the fact that I do feel like this game, you know, could be around for a long time if they address some of the issues with it. But I think so far my favorite part about it has to be the two oh my fucking god. My favorite part about it is getting killed by pirates. No, my favorite part is probably the two-weapon fighting system. The fact that you can switch between two weapons is like, I don't know, like, I can't think of any game that has done, MMO anyway, that has done this recently. It seems to me like this is exclusive to, no, MMOs, come on. I'm talking about MMORPGs, not Smash. My fist in the frying pan. Me and the Pokeball. Yeah. Okay, so where's this guy at? Boatswain Ambrose. Am I pronouncing that right? But yeah, I mean that's a really cool thing. It allows for some pretty dynamic combat, and when you're talking about a game that's centered around PvP, I mean that's a really good idea. Like allowing people to use a gun, sword, and a shield. Like that's pretty sweet. You can make some like really interesting interactions there. And it seems like they've done a lot of balancing and stuff too, which is cool. But they've still got a lot to work on, I think, in terms of like the game itself. But I'll still continue to play. The game is supposed to release officially like on 2nd of August or something like that. So the movement is really good. Feels like smooth and stuff like that. I think I love the UI. It's got really good. Just gonna salvage all of these. It's got really good. It's simple, but like it works. You know, it's functional. It's sleek. It's clean. Like I feel like a lot of games try to overdo it, and they either make their UI like way too fucking complicated, like they'll have like fucking dials for the goddamn sun and shit like that. It's like the sun is in this position on the 4th day of autumn, and like the breeze is just ever so slightly 4 miles per hour, and 20% humidity. It's like, bitch, is any of this stuff relevant? Like, do I need to know any of this in a fucking game? You know what I mean? Like, I mean, I understand like they're trying to be immersive and stuff like that, but like there's a point in which you are just adding shit to like add it. And like, of course, you would have to know like as a player, like, oh, the humidity is 20%. I better make sure my crops are okay, otherwise they're gonna die. And it's like, I have a normal job, and I also have other things that I do besides play video games, unfortunately, so I don't have time to check on my crops every second of the day. You know? It's just not something that's in. And also, I don't really care about my digital crops either. If I did, I would play like a farming simulator if that's really what I wanted to do. So when games make that stuff important, I'm like, yeah, we're not doing this. You know what I mean? They tried to do that shit in Black Desert, which is like really disappointing because Black Desert had so much potential, but it just turned into this like abhorrent fucking grind fest. And unfortunately, that's just not what people want in 2021, you know? Alright, so this person must be below, because they're certainly not on the same level as us. We're on a level above. But yeah, it's definitely not, it doesn't feel like a grind fest. Like, there are people who are already level 60, which is the max level, which doesn't seem too high. So I do think the builds, I'm kind of, how do I put this? I'm sort of on, oh god. Well, I got by on that one. I'm sort of got some mixed feelings about the builds. Like, the builds are really cool in some regards, right? Like, but I'm pretty sure you can just get all of these if you, like, level up enough. So I guess there's really not any builds other than, like, your stats. Which, on one hand, is cool because I feel like you can do everything if you want to. You would just have to respec your stats to fit your appropriate weapon. On the other hand, it's bad because there's no uniqueness to the builds, if that makes any sense. Like, it's not like, oh, you're playing Arms Warrior, oh, he's playing Fury, or oh, he's spec'd to be a tank. Like, it's like, oh, you play Sword and Shield, you're presumed to be able to do everything if needed, right? So, I don't know. It's just a little one-dimensional, I guess, is what I'm getting at. But, that being said, it's easy to understand and it's really streamlined. So, again, mixed feelings, mixed feelings. I don't know if they necessarily need to change it. I'd be pretty content with it staying here. Maybe just add some extra abilities as time goes on. But it looks like you can only use 3 active abilities at once, so I guess that is sort of like your build, so to speak. And you can sort of change depending on the situation. That's cool, I guess. I might do a... I've got an idea. So I'm getting like a little bit of choppiness with the stream. I'm thinking I might do like a quick stream restart, like just super fast, because I think that I want to adjust a setting and see how it does. So I'm going to do like a 1-minute stream restart, like, and I'm just basically going to go offline and back online. So if you're watching, I apologize, but I'm going to take like a brief intermission. We are like at about the halfway point anyway, so it's probably time for a sudden intermission, but like not like this, obviously. I would prefer to stay around, but yeah, I'm just going to go offline for like 1 minute and just go right back online. So yeah, just refresh the browser if you can, and see you back in just a second.